So Jennifer Jaimes originally was from Bullhead City, and she was mostly raised by an older sister after her parents were deported when she was barely 6 years old. But she's currently a college student now, majoring in elementary education at ASU Lake Havasu. And she's also a member of the fall 2018 cohort, and she expects to graduate in spring 2022. In addition, Jennifer is also working as one of these high school advisors that Rich spoke about, the Americorps AdviseAZ program, which embeds college students in high schools across Arizona. Our second guest, Aimee Rodriguez. Aimee grew up in Yuma, where she and her twin sister joined College Success Arizona as high school students. She was a member of the class of 2016, and she received a Bachelor of Science in Psychology from the University of Arizona, and following that, a master's degree in nursing. One thing you need to know about Aimee is she's incredibly perseverant. She was denied acceptance into the nursing program 3 times before she actually got in. So she's an extremely perseverant person, and that's a good skill to have because currently she is working on the front lines of COVID at the University of Medical Center in Tucson. So now I'd like to bring in Aimee and Jennifer. I can see, there we go. So Jennifer's in the middle, or at least my screen, Jennifer's in the middle and Aimee's on the right. Thank you so much for joining us. So I'd like to ask you some questions and have you share with the audience a little bit about your background and your experience with College Success Arizona. You both grew up in fairly rural cities in Arizona. Can you tell us a little bit about what the college going atmosphere is like in your hometown?
Yes, so being from Bullhead City, we're a very small town. It's actually kind of funny when people ask us like, where is Bullhead City located on the map? You kind of have to scroll in a few times to like find us. But we are a very small town, so very small in size, but we do have an amazing community. We do get beautiful sunsets, so that's a plus. And for the most part, it's very peaceful. However, there's not a lot of resources. There's not a lot of like things to do since we're so small. So if we have to do, so our trips, like academic trips, are usually a long ways just because we're so off on our own. But other than that, we're pretty peaceful little town, unless it's a holiday. There's a lot, we can be a tourist attraction. We live by the Colorado River and we're 1 hour away from Vegas. So we do get a lot of visitors, but for the most part, we're a small town.
So what was the college going atmosphere like here in your high school when you were there?
It was very minimal personally. It wasn't up until elementary where we started receiving preparedness and resources or even exploration on post-secondary education. Usually you only find out or you kind of discover post-secondary if you already have that in a mindset. It's not something that they help you discover along the ways, or they will create activities or events that will lead you to think, you know, this is what I would possibly be interested in, or this is a possibility that I can achieve. So it was more something that you had to really discover on your own and then receive help. It wasn't something where help was there and let's help you discover it. We didn't have a lot of resources or mentoring in post-secondary education exploration up until Gear Up. Gear Up was truly the one who revolutionized our whole atmosphere in regards to post-secondary. It just helped us understand what it was, what are the possibilities that we can achieve, and how can we obtain those careers and dreams, and kind of help us with the process.
That's great. Thank you, Jennifer. Aimee, can you share with us what was like growing up in rural Arizona and the college going atmosphere in Yuma?
Yeah, of course. Similar to Jennifer, I like to describe Yuma as a little town that most people say they just drive through to get to either Phoenix or San Diego. So it's not a town that it's just a drive-through town. But growing up there, I absolutely loved growing up in rural Arizona because there was just like this agriculture is such a popular concept out there, and there's a lot of farm work. So the smell of cut grass is something that's always going to be so true to my heart. But it was just really, for me personally, somebody once said, like, you guys still have horses out there? We are a lot more advanced than that. But it's a small town with very, very beautiful sun, almost 360 days a year, very, very warm. But it felt, even to this day, I think about it, and there's nothing that compares to it, and it feels like home. So it was amazing to grow up in Yuma. I was never a city girl, so it was just the perfect fit, I guess, for me. And then going back to the cultural going atmosphere, similar to Jennifer and growing up in Bull City, for me, it was, I mean, the closest university was 2.5 hours away, which was in Phoenix, and we did have a community college. But like I mentioned earlier, we're an agricultural town, so there's a lot of Hispanic, Mexican, American, a popular population there. So a lot of my peers, similar to me, came from parents who were immigrants, and the barrier of education. My parents never received a higher level education. My parents barely graduated high school. They didn't speak English. So, and that was the story that you kept hearing around. And luckily I was able to go to a high school that offered AP courses. But again, the lack of resources, living in such a rural community, the lack of education from parents, of a fear of the unknown, they didn't understand what resources were available, and also a lot of parents were very poor, so they never wanted to encourage their kids to go to college because they would think to themselves, like, how am I going to afford to send my child to college? And there's multiple kids and families, and then because of the lack of resources, a lot of people, including myself, did not know up until I got to high school what were my options and what was post-secondary and what were the possibilities of me going. So it was so far-fetched for me to go. And like you said, as being a twin sister, and I have an older sister who is 3 years older than us. So it was 3 girls wanting to go to college and really not knowing what resources were available. And the closest thing that we had were counselors, like you mentioned before, and without the understanding and knowledge that advisors from like AdviseAZ have an understanding of what FAFSA is. And I mean, I had an older sister who went to college, and even then she was not able to help me and my twin sister apply to FAFSA. So it was really hard, and it was definitely an uphill battle. And going to college was not really something that was, I felt like a possibility for me, even as, you know, someone who had an older sister who was already in college. So.
Thank you, Aimee.
Yeah.
So Jennifer, can you talk also about the education level of your parents and what kind of expectations did they have in terms of your education?
Yeah, so similar to Aimee, my parents didn't have an educational background. They actually only made it up to maybe 5th or 6th grade due to the fact that they had to drop out and help. So my mom and my dad come from big traditional families. My mom is a total of 15 kids, and my dad's a total of 11. So dealing with the fact that they were huge in size and family, they had to help in the farms to provide food. So back then, their priority was, how do we keep them alive? Education wasn't really a necessity. It was a necessity. It wasn't a huge concern for my grandparents. But dealing with that, my mother has always, she had aspiration to pursue education. She actually also wanted to be a teacher. With us, it was a little bit different. We had more of an encouragement and motivation, and they put the value that we needed to pursue our education. So they made it important for us to really, truly try our best to be as academically successful as we can, just because they were ripped away from that privilege. So growing up with them was definitely understanding the huge importance of education and kind of valuing why is it so important to pursue an education.
Great, thank you. So as Rich was talking about before, with the Americorps AdviseAZ program, we have staff members embedded in Arizona high schools. And the need for that is largely because Arizona has the lowest ratio of counselors to students in the nation for their high schools. We have over 900 students for every single counselor. And as Rich also said, they're not required to get college readiness training as part of their initial certification. So that's another need that we address. And for both Jennifer and Aimee, they've taken advantage of these kinds of resources while they were in school. Jennifer, as an Americorps member, what kinds of services do you provide to the students, and how many students are you working with?
So as for services, it kind of ranges on the day. Majority of them were FAFSA applications, FSIDs, college applications. We also had housing and fees, anything that related to like post-secondary is where we would help them. On a daily, we would get maybe about 10 to 15 students. Since we're a small town, we don't really have a huge population of students, but we were receiving a lot of visitations in comparison to the past. Guidance counselors were only able to assist one student at a time versus 3, because on my side, I was actually able to serve with an ARCC member, which is another Americorps program. So we were 2 members at a side. So that really helped tremendously to reach more students. And the students were coming to us and helped. And we had every day was something different. Every student had a different situation with FAFSA. We did get trainings and preparedness in how to assist them, but it's truly amazing how each student can bring a different barrier. Each student can have a different college process that makes it different. So you're constantly learning every single day with them, and it just expands your knowledge on how different a student's circumstance could change their college preparedness and their college application.
Good, thank you. Aimee, it's been a little bit longer since you were in college, but you think back on it, in addition to the funding that you received through College Success Arizona and the scholarship program, can you talk about the mentoring that services and how valuable that was to you during your schooling?
Definitely. That's my favorite part. I love to talk about the advising because it makes CSA so unique. And I was fortunate enough when I applied to college to receive multiple scholarships. And the more I think about it, and like as I was just, thinking about what we're doing here today, the more I can't help but be so grateful for not only the monetary help that I received to go to college, but the advising that for me, Matt was my advisor. And I will never forget the day I met Matt. And I feel like Matt will be not only a friend, an advisor for the rest of my life, but a friend. He's grown to see me through even after I was an alumni of CSA. And as an underprivileged student living in a rural community with parents who don't really understand the college process. So actually being in college, I remember my mom would be like, oh, just get straight A's and like, it'll be fine and you'll be fine. But again, I did graduate with a class of 600 students, but I went into my first chemistry 151 class with 350 students. And I was like, at 8 a.m., it was my first course. And I was like, what did I just get myself into? I am not prepared for this. But thankfully, I remember, even to this day, I remember having conversations with Matt where sometimes he was giving me resources. He was networking, helping me network around CSA, or he was just being a friend and being like, Aimee, you got this. Or, you know, there's like, oh, I remember telling him how many times I applied and being like, I'm done. I don't want to apply to nursing school anymore. It's my dream, but I can't do it. And he'd always be there to encourage me to keep going. He had so much faith in me. And sometimes it's really hard coming from, again, a family that my parents who are encouraging me. It's kind of hard when they're trying to encourage you to finish school, but they don't understand what it is to be in college. They don't understand the rigors that come with it, the long nights, the many cups of coffee that you take, the mental breakdowns that you have. And Matt just was such an expert in the field, and he was always able to guide me through any situation or any conflict that I had, or just to be there and be like, oh, good job, Aimee, like you did great. I had very little faith in myself going into it, because you feel so small coming from a rural town and coming into Tucson, which is not as big as Phoenix, but it's, you know, you're exposed to so much more culture, so many more people. It was, Matt always grounded me, and it was nice to have somebody there who understood what I was going through and was able to guide me and help me through all this process. And honestly, without Matt, I think I would have given up so many times. And again, I had a twin sister who was right along the ride with me. So I had someone who was going through this with me, through the motions with me, but you just need someone else. And I'm pretty sure Jennifer can talk about her advisor. And I'm just one story, but there's countless of peers who also received the CSA scholarship and talk about Matt or talk about their advisors in ways that we all were so excited to go see them, because it was like a breath of fresh air. It was somebody who was on your side and believed in you tremendously. So part of being a CSA alumni, like I said, the monetary help is great, but it was the advising that for me honestly just changed and transformed my career path and my life as a student.
Thank you, Aimee. Jennifer, what about your experience with your mentoring?
Same as Aimee, it truly is the mentoring and the guidance that CSA offers. More especially, I just felt like it was a continuation to Gear Up, which I wasn't ready to let go just because how involved they were with my academic endeavors. So it was kind of neat to continue having that, and having Violeta, which is my advisor, help me grow and help me understand, like, it's okay to not know. How can I help you? And it's just the connections that they provide, and I think also is the human aspect to it. And what I mean by the human aspect of, like, they acknowledge that it's not easy to attain post-secondary, but what they do is they help you. So versus them saying, like, you know, it is hard, you know, but, you know, push through, they actually provide the resources for you to realize, yes, I can do this. I'm gonna do this. So it's the motivation that they are able to provide, the support, but also the relationships that they give us too. I think one of the things when you're a college student is, especially coming from a rural, from a small town, is that you're really not used to interacting with a lot of people. So they're kind of your first college friend. They're just like, and they're actually encouraging you to, like, make new friends, get out of your room, and kind of just have that social aspect along with the academic aspects as well. So it's a little bit of everything. It's truly what you need. I feel like everyone should have a CSA advisor just for them to experience. It makes the college experience so much better and so much less stressful. And it's just something that, like Aimee said, we're going to be extremely grateful to have, and it does truly make CSA unique, because I've never had an organization where it specialized on not just only helping attain post-secondary, but actually helping you meanwhile you're experiencing and navigating college.